Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome members to the second part of today's meeting, including all our newly elected members, this time taking place in the Council Chamber. The Director of Public Health would like to remind us that regular hand washing, good room ventilation, as well as staying at home if you feel unwell, will reduce the spread of coughs, colds and other viruses. This will protect the most vulnerable and reduce pressure for the NHS and our own care services. For the attention of those members of the public wishing to record proceedings, the Council's rules prohibit the filming, photographing or recording of members of the public, including those making deputations. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble in front of the Queen Victoria statue in Guildhall Square. Just to remind members wishing to speak, you simply press the talk button on the unit in front of you and I will activate your microphone when I call you to speak. I will also turn off your microphone once you have finished speaking. For the benefit of newly elected members, a reminder that protocol dictates that you stand to address Council. Now moving to agenda item 3 of this Council meeting, as shown on the agenda. Members, if you have any disclosable pecuniary interests or personal and prejudicial interests to declare in relation to the items on the agenda before us, please can you indicate? Oh yeah. Oh, please be seated. I just want to see how long I can make a stand for. To any interests? No? No interest at all. So we move on to agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Is it proposed by Councillor Vernon Jackson, as leader currently, and seconded by Councillor Bosher, that the minutes of the Council meeting held on the 14th of March 2023, previously circulated, be confirmed as a correct record? Are the minutes agreed? Agenda item 5, communications. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor George Fielding. Please note the circulated seating plan, which for this meeting has been agreed in consultation with the group leaders. May I welcome newly elected councillors Peter Candlish, Raymond Dent, Chris Dyke, Leonie Oliver, Emily Strudwick and Mary Vallely to the Council, and this, their first Council meeting. I would also like to welcome Councillor Hannah Brent back to the Council, along with Councillors Dave Ashmore, Chris Atwell, Cal Corkery, Graham Heaney, Susie Horton, Lee Hunt and Gerald Vernon Jackson for being returned for another term. Finally, I would like to turn to Councillor Gerarda, who I believe would like to address Council. Councillor Gerarda.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I just wanted to start the meeting on a positive note before potential chaos ensued. But I do have a bit of positive personal news to tell you all, and that's that I'm pregnant. Yeah, over 3 months. So I thought I'd better tell you, because you're probably wondering, why is she getting so plump and like bursting out of her dresses? Well, that is why. But I also wanted to say a big thanks from me, because as some of you know, I had a couple of miscarriages in the last 6 months, and the one in November, I was really, really gravely unwell and I was hospitalised, and you were all really kind to me, and I really appreciate your support, so thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. I'm sure all members will join me in congratulating you and Aaron. Moving to agenda item 6, deputations from the public under Standing Order 24. I can advise Council no deputation requests have been received. Agenda item 7, to elect the leader of the City Council for a 4-year term of office. Under the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007, the Council is required to elect a leader of the City Council who will remain in office for 4 years unless their current term of office as a councillor expires earlier. Also the subject of the conditions set out on the agenda paper. Members, may I have nominations for the position of Leader of the Council with a proposer and seconder? Councillor Vernon Jackson.
My Lord Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to be able to propose Councillor Steve Pitt. As we've just been through the mayor making and the Lord Mayor has done his report back on his year, I have my speech to report back on 15 years as leader, which may take some time. But no, we'll skip that. But I'm very happy to nominate Steve Pitt. I think he'll be an excellent leader, and I'm sure Susie will want to second this as well.
Very happy to second it, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson and Councillor Horton. Are there any other nominations? Members, it's been proposed and seconded that Councillor Steve Pitt be appointed Leader of the City Council. I will now take a vote. Those in favour of Councillor Steve Pitt? Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. I hereby declare Councillor Steve Pitt as leader of Portsmouth City Council. Leader, would you like to say a few words?
No, I'll be brief, and thank you very much for the opportunity to do so, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I would very much like to thank my fellow councillors for their support today. It means a lot to me. I promise to work with full time. Sorry, I didn't drink enough at lunchtime. I meant not alcohol, of course. I promise to work full time to continue the Liberal Democrat vision for a safer, greener, fairer, and cleaner city, and to work alongside our local communities to take Portsmouth forward together. My door will always be open to members across the floor, and I promise to always listen to concerns and, wherever possible, address them positively and collegiately. There will inevitably be areas of disagreement, otherwise we wouldn't be in different parties and groups, but I hope we can move forward respectfully in the knowledge that we're all here to deliver the best possible outcomes for the people of our amazing city that I've been proud to call home for my entire life. I would like to pay tribute to the long and dedicated service to this council and our city of Councillor Gerald Vernon-Jackson, who's dedicated the last 20 years of his life to work in Hove for Portsmouth, and I am delighted that he will continue to serve on Cabinet. Gerald, on a personal note, thank you for your willingness over the last 5 years to share your experience and knowledge with me, and for being respectful and collaborative in our work together, especially during my 3 years as your deputy and helping ensure that I am ready to lead our city. My Lord Mayor, it is now my responsibility to announce the Cabinet for this municipal year. They are a strong team and one that will deliver on our ambitious plans to take Portsmouth forward. So without further ado, I am delighted to announce that the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education will be Councillor Susie Horton. The Cabinet Member for Community Wellbeing, Health and Care will be Councillor Matthew Winnington. The Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Greening the City will be Councillor Kimberly Barrett. The Cabinet Member for Resources will be Councillor Lee Hunt. The Cabinet Member for Safety in the Community will be Councillor Ian Holder. The Cabinet Member for Environmental Services will be Councillor Dave Ashmore. And the Cabinet Member for Transport will be Councillor Gerald Vernon-Jackson. Cabinet Member for Planning Policy and City Development will be Councillor Hugh Mason. And finally, the Cabinet Member for Housing and Tackling Homelessness will be Councillor Darren Sanders. For information for other members, I'll be retaining the Culture, Leisure and Economic Development portfolio for this municipal year. I also have to announce that the Health and Wellbeing Board members will be myself, Councillor Matthew Winnington in his portfolio role, Councillor Susie Horton in her portfolio role, and as Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Simon Bosher has the opportunity to nominate a representative from his group to attend those meetings, and I'll invite him to do so in due course. We've also set a tradition over the last few years of the leaders of the other council groups being invited to attend the Health and Wellbeing Board, and this is something that I intend to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The information on Cabinet positions as provided by the Leader, together with details of opposition spokespersons as provided by the other group leaders, will be circulated to members later. Agenda items 9 to 14. In accordance with normal practice, I propose to take agenda items 9 to 14 together, namely proportional representation on panels and committees, details previously circulated, to appoint members to committees and panels for the 2023-24 municipal year, the appointment of members and standing deputies, chairs and vice chairs, and appointments and other appointments. Is it agreed to take these items together? The Leader of the Council has put forward recommendations in respect of committee seat allocations in accordance with political proportionality rules. In addition to this, the names of the group members proposed to fill the positions are shown on the papers circulated in the chamber today. These also contain the names of those members from the other groups filling the requisite remaining seats on the respective bodies. There are a number of contested positions which Council will need to take separate votes on. Can I ask the Leader to propose, followed by the Leader of the largest opposition group to second, the adoption of the overall political balance of the Council and the allocation of seat schedule and to agree the membership of the committees and panels, including appointments and other appointments detailed at agenda items 10, 11, 13 and 14, which are not contested, please. Namely, this is all committee seats bar the contested... Forget that. And the vacancy on the Education, Children, Young People Scrutiny panel. Are there any amendments beside the contested positions? Councillor Heaney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to seek some clarification about a potential amendment because you've decided to take all the items together, assuming that will be agreed. Because I want to move an amendment in relation to the appointment of chairs, vice chairs of committees and scrutiny management panels for the 2023-24 municipal year. So I'd like your advice on when I can do that.
Might as well do it now.
Well, it hasn't been moved or seconded. I don't know whether you want to move and second it first, and then I can amend it. Proposed amendment, yes.
This one. That's Steve Pitt as well. One moment. Would you like to officially propose that, Councillor Heaney?
Thank you. Well, I'm moving the amendment under Standing Order 40F, as it can be moved without notice. We had a discussion last year about the chairs and vice chairs of committees, and if I recall it correctly, the Liberal Democrat administration put forward nominations to all of the vice chairs and chairs of committees, but the outcome was they got less than they wanted, and I think the leader of the council was a bit upset about it and decided to have a bit of a sulk, I have to say, about it afterwards and on social media. At the time, the opposition party, the council was obviously not in the majority, and the opposition parties had not always had the same access to scrutiny management and chairs as before. I mean, the history of this is that it has gradually got better, but not necessarily hardly so. And at the end of during that debate, I actually said that what would be a more sensible system would be to have it based on proportionality. And I did suggest that, and I did say that as the previous leader of the council, Councillor Vigilant, had been around a long time, he had plenty of opportunity to put that forward as a fairer way of allocating places. But obviously, you know, for whatever reason, he chose not to do it. So the amendment I would like to propose is that chairs and vice chairs of committees and panels in agenda item 10 be allocated on the basis of proportionality rules for the membership of panels and committees. So basically what would happen is, if you look at the appointments sheet on the front, the proportions would be worked out on the basis of that. So what you would get out of the 20 places for chairs and vice chairs on the on the panels and committees, and I've checked my maths because I'm not very good at maths, 8 would go to the Lib Dem, 4 to the Conservatives, 3 to Labour, 3 to PIP, 1 to Portsmouth Community Independence, and 1 to the non-aligned independent. That's how it would work. And then it would be up to the parties to decide which of those it wished to take. So clearly, a group may like to take all of the regulatory committees, you know, and have chair and vice chair. They could do it, but that would be subject to some sort of negotiation. Now, I think that in many ways is a much better way of doing it, because what we seem to have before us, if I have read it correctly, is that the Labour group have no chairs of any scrutiny committees, whereas we did have last year. The Conservative group have no chairs of scrutiny committees, as they did last year. And in particular, I looked at scrutiny management. It's been a custom and practice that scrutiny management has been chaired by the two opposition parties, the two largest opposition parties. And in this case, it is not the case. Now, these things with custom and practice, they're custom and practice until somebody decides it's not custom and practice. It's a bit like the Constitution. You know, we have these constitutional principles that we've operated for many, many years, and then suddenly somebody decides they're no longer a principle, so we don't bother. So I do think there are some important issues here in relation to the way in which we should do this. And I think that this is a much fairer way to do it. I mean, I have not been involved in the detailed discussions, although my colleague who leads the group has kept me informed about it. And it's been quite a process, I understand. Now, I know that Councillor Pitt, as the new leader, does believe in more cooperative working, and I've seen him say that and do that. So I just would hope that with his new leadership of the council, that we might be able to see this being put into practice in the idea that we would actually look at having a proper proportional system, and the amendment would be considered and hopefully accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. I did notice you did skip ahead a bit there. You came in a bit early. Charlotte Ryder, do you second that?
I formally second, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Pitt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My understanding was that your request of full council was that we first vote and decide on whether we accept the overall memberships of the committee, and we haven't yet done that. We appear to have skipped to a later point. I'm happy to propose your suggestion that we vote en bloc for the overall memberships of those groups, and then we can sort the rest of it out afterwards.
Did members wish to debate the allocations?
I did try to suggest that maybe I think I agree with Councillor Pitt, that maybe you want to agree the proportionality first, and then, because it's a later item, when we're putting all the things together, it gets a bit confusing. There is a sequence to this. I did seek a bit of advice about this before I put this forward, so I did try to give some notice of what I was intending to do in order not to cause too much confusion, but I don't seem to have succeeded on that one. So I suggest we should agree proportionality on the places, and then we can discuss whether the chairs and vice chairs should be proportional. That would be my view of it, if that's helpful.
I'm just going to go back to my script. Members, apologies. So firstly, we need to take a vote on this proposal. So it needs to be officially seconded by the leader of the main opposition party, please. Councillor Beauchamp. Yes. Members, are we in agreement with that? Thank you. I've been advised we now need to vote on Councillor Heaney's verbal amendment. I didn't catch that, Councillor Madden, sorry.
Lord Mayor, He's put forward a proposal. I presume it's open to debate.
Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. It's an interesting amendment from Councillor Heaney. I think my memory is slightly different from his. I think last year what happened is the Conservative and Labour groups got together and stitched up a plan to take all the chairs of the committees, which they did. It just went wrong on one, where the voting was different. And I understand that that same discussion has been happening this year between the leaders of the Labour and Conservative groups about trying to stitch together a deal to take all the chairs again. My understand, and it's been reported back from me from people who've had those discussions that that's what's happened, but the numbers just don't add up this year. So, my Lord Mayor, I think it's an interesting thing which I would support, that we look at for proportionality, but to do it at this point is too late for this year, but I think it's a very sensible thing to look at for next year, because what we want to do is to avoid what the Labour and the Conservative groups did last year, which was to take all the chairs and reappoint people who were chairing committees that had not met for 3 years, for which there were salaries, and those groups did nothing to remove those people who'd been taking public money for chairing committees that had never met. So, my Lord Mayor, I think it's a sensible proposal, but it's only come forward because the aim to try to reproduce last year, the stitch-up between Labour and Conservatives, has failed this year, and that's why it's come back. So I'm sorry, I think it's far too late. I think it's a good thing to think of for next year, but it's only come here because the plan this year has failed.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson. Councillor Matt Atkins.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wish to stand up and speak in support of Councillor Heaney's proposal. I think it's a sensible proposal. Someone the Council may recall 2 years ago when I suggested that it should also apply to things like outside appointments that carry £10,000 salaries. But of course, the former leader and the current leader would know that they always appoint those within their own group. So if the former leader wants to talk stitch-up, I think we should talk about the grand stitch-up we're seeing today, not only in that all the chairs are being assigned between the Liberal Democrats and Independents, who of course, as we now know, work extremely closely together in the city to the point of being the same party. The Liberal Democrats have practically disappeared from the north, and yet instead we have an independent party. Deeply suspicious. The other stitch-up I'd like to talk about is the fact that I think many in Milton might be surprised to see that the leader of the council they voted for has stepped down, shall we say, and much in the manner of Brown to Blair, or May to Cameron, or even, dare I say it, Rishi to the Boris of Gerald Vernon Jackson. We have a new leader of the council today, which nobody votes for either. So if the administration want to talk stitch-up today, I think there is quite a lot of stitch-up that we can look at, and it's not coming from the Conservative or the Labour Party. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. Councillor Gerardo.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I just wanted to have a point of clarification because our former leader, Councillor Vernon Jackson, was being dishonest there. There has not been a stitch-up this year between ourselves and the Conservative Party at all. So I wanted to get that on the record to correct him, because that is factually incorrect. Secondly, I completely endorse my colleague, Councillor Graham Heaney's proposal that's been put here today, because something that I'd like to remind the Liberal Democrat administration of, it needs to be reminded them time and again, is this council is in no overall control. We need to have representation that reflects that. We have the Labour Party, we have independents, we have another group of independents now. The fairest and most open and transparent thing would be, rather than all these backroom conversations and dealings, for us to have an open conversation and to collaborate ahead of these meetings and to do it fairly, because I personally think we're a better council and we're going to make better decisions when we're all represented, not when the Conservatives are cut out or we're cut out, or indeed any other member of any political party. So I completely endorse Councillor Graham Heaney's approach, and I hope that others will support that so we can do that in the fairest way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gerardus. Councillor Pitt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Wow. What an extraordinary position we find ourselves in. To raise a suggested amendment on the floor of the council chamber at the annual general meeting is not, I think, good governance. I would fully support a review, and the council has mechanisms to do that during the year, and we would want to play our full part in that. However, for those watching at home or anyone sat in the gallery, I would remind people that proportionality exists automatically because we've just voted for it. There is proportionality in the representation of each of the groups on the panels that we are selecting here today. That proportionality reflects the membership of this council, and therefore it is not fair or accurate to suggest that this is in any way the Liberal Democrats dominating positions. I would point out that of the panels that do scrutiny, we have put forward no nominations for chairs, Lord Mayor. So to imply that we are trying to grab, in some way, control everything and to stifle scrutiny is absolutely not accurate. We also had constructive conversations with other groups on the council. For transparency and accuracy, the first conversation that I was able to have with the Labour group leader, who reached out to me on Sunday afternoon at 3:30, barely 48 hours before this meeting. I've still attempted at that very late stage to be constructive in that conversation. I had no prior contact at all with any approach for any suggestions from Councillor Bosher. I'm not aware that the former leader or anyone else in the administration was contacted by Councillor Heaney to discuss this suggestion that's before us today, since we're apparently talking about being collegiate and working collaboratively. Very difficult to do that when you just spring that on the floor of the council chamber. So you, members of the public will see that there are nominations outside of the administration for other councillors in chair and vice chair positions, including from Portsmouth Independents, Portsmouth Community Independents and an unaligned independent. So I don't think it's a fair reflection to say that we're trying to dominate positions. We have worked with those who approached us and spoke to us and behaved in a constructive manner. We remain willing to do this in future, and should the Labour and Conservative groups follow through on what they've said today, which is to have constructive and timely conversations next year, we would absolutely welcome that, and we have no objections whatsoever to a review of the current system during this municipal year.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Well, it's not a great start from the new leader of the City Council. He's just said we haven't put forward any Liberal Democrat candidates to chair a scrutiny committee, because I'm looking at what I've got here, and it says Health Overview and Scrutiny Panel, Liberal Democrat Chair Mark Jeffries, Liberal Democrat Vice Chair Leonie Oliver. So that is a scrutiny committee, unless the word scrutiny isn't applicable in the title scrutiny panel on that particular instance. But having said that, is there a point of order to clarify? Go on then.
Councillor Pitt.
Point of order 39B, Lord Mayor. I was specific about saying panels. Health Overview Scrutiny Board has a different role to the other scrutiny management panels, and I would expect the Leader of the Opposition and the other group leaders to understand the very important distinction in its role.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Okay, well, it's scrutiny panels, it's health overview and scrutiny panel on the document, but hey-ho, we can be pedantic about the wording. I go back to this time last year, and I seem to recollect that Councillor Vernon Jackson was jumping up and down like a cat on a hot tin roof, interjecting with what he thought was a Conservative and Labour stitch-up, and wanting to amend it and wanting to change it at that point. The short factor is that you've had all year, Councillor Vernon Jackson, if you wanted to make changes, You've chosen not to do that. Councillor Heaney has been very diligent in his particular approach and actually gone forward with it. I did reach out to you when you were still leader to see whether you wanted to talk, Councillor Vernon Jackson. You chose not to do that. You were too engaged with Councillor Madgwick and looking at some sort of deal there. And yes, I think it's fair to say that all the groups have actually talked amongst themselves about the annual council. The short issue is the fact that Graham Heaney has done his diligence, Lord Mayor. He's brought forward something which I think is eminently sensible. It'll stop all the so-called stitch-ups, because you're accusing us of it this year. Arguably, the same could apply to the inaugural coalition between the PIP group and the Liberal Democrats and everything that you've actually planned this year. It's an opportunity to see whether the independent group are going to be truly independent, I would suggest, and see whether they think that openness and transparency in the issue of democracy is the right way to go, or whether they're just going to chase the pay positions. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bosher. I have no further speakers. Would you like to sum up on your amendment, Councillor Heaney?
It's a proposal. I put a motion proposal forward, so I think I can sum up. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry for the confusion that's been caused. I mean, I wasn't deliberately trying to cause confusion. I did actually email earlier my concerns.
The proposal was proposed by Councillor Pitt and seconded by Councillor Bosher. If there is a summing up, it rests with the person who proposed the main proposal, not with the person who put an amendment.
I'm acting on advice from both these gents. Councillor Madrick.
Can I just make one thing quite clear? Last year, I voted for something Terry Norton brought up, and I voted in favour of Conservatives. The last meeting of the year, Kirsty, did I vote for you when the other two in the party of my party voted to abstain? I am independent, and nobody tells me who to vote for. And that's the agreement we got in this party. So for Councillor Bosher to turn around and say that we've done a deal winds me up, because I haven't done a deal with anyone, and I'll vote for who I think is right, not any party line. There's no party whip with us. Ray's already saying that he's going against something that I'm going for, etc., etc. So there is no stitch-up, right, which there was last year. And we know who the stitch-up was between last year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Madrick. We will move to vote on the amendment. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? So the amendment falls. Back to my script now. So go from there. Yeah. Back to the script. In respect of item 12, appointments of chairs and vice chairs, can I firstly seek agreement for uncontested positions? These are the Chair of the Health Overview and Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Mark Jeffrey. The Vice Chair of the Health Overview Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Leonie Oliver. Chair of the Housing and Social Care Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Kirsty Mellor. The Vice Chair of Housing and Social Care Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Raymond Dent. Chair of Education, Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Brian Madrick. Chair of the Economic Development, Culture and Leisure Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Russell Simpson. Vice Chair of Licensing, the Licensing Committee, Councillor Emily Strudwick. Vice Chair of the Planning Committee, Councillor Lee Hunt. Chairman of the Scrutiny Management Panel, Councillor Cal Corkery. Chairman of the Governance Audits Standards Committee, Councillor Leo Madden. Vice Chair of the Employment Committee, Councillor Darren Sanders. Chair of the Traffic, Environment and Community Safety Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Judith Smythe. Vice Chair of Traffic, Environment, Community Safety Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Charlotte Gerrada. the appointment of Councillor George Madrick to the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Authority, the appointment of Councillor Jason Fazackerley to the Police and Crime Panel with Councillor Ian Holder as deputy, the nominations and standing deputies detailed for the Langston Harbour Board, the nominations detailed for the Local Government Association General Assembly, the nominations detailed for the Twinning Advisory Group. Are those uncontested positions agreed, members? Thank you, members. Now on to the contested chair and vice chair positions under item 12. Chair of Licensing Committee. Those in favour of Councillor Jason Fazackerley being the committee chair. Those against? Oh no, those in favour of George Fielding being the committee chair. Thank you. Councillor Jason Fazackerley is elected as chair of the Licensing Committee. Now on to the Planning Committee chairman. Those in favour of Councillor Chris Atwell being the committee chair. Those in favour of Councillor Judith Smythe? Thank you. Councillor Chris Atwell is elected as chair of the Planning Committee. Now on to the Scrutiny Management Panel vice chair. Those in favour of Councillor Leo Madden being the vice chair. And those in favour of Councillor Graham Heaney? Thank you. Councillor Leah Madden is elected as Vice Chair of the Scrutiny Management Panel. On to the Governance and Audits and Standards Committee Vice Chair. Those in favour of Councillor Stuart Brown being the Vice Chair. Those in favour of Councillor George Madrick? Thank you. Councillor Stuart Brown is elected as the Vice Chair of the Governance and Audits and Standards Committee. On to the Employment Committee Chair. Those in favour of Councillor Stuart Brown being the Committee Chair. And those in favour of Councillor Cal Corkery? Thank you. Councillor Stuart Brown is elected as the Chair of the Employment Committee. Members, we've now voted on all of the contested Chair and Vice Chair positions. I shall now seek nominations for the Vice Chair positions which have not yet received a nomination. Do I have any nominations for the position of Vice Chair of the Education, Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel? Councillor Gerardo.
Can I nominate Councillor Mary Vallely, please, my Lord Mayor?
And a seconder.
Very happy to second it. I can speak for a week if you want.
No, thank you. Thank you. Any other nominations? All those in favour? Congratulations, Councillor Vallely. Elected as Vice Chair of the Children and Education one. Finally, do I have any nominations for the position of Vice Chair of the Economic Development, Culture and Leisure Scrutiny Panel?
Can I propose John Smith?
Do I have a seconder? Any other nominations? All those in favour? Any against? Thank you. Councillor John Smith is elected as Vice Chair of the Economic Development, Culture and Leisure Scrutiny Panel. Having determined the contested positions, we'll now vote on the leader's proposal as circulated, incorporating the outcome of contested positions votes. Those in favour? I'll slow down. Having determined the contested positions, we will now vote on the leader's proposal as circulated, incorporating the outcome of the contested positions votes. Everything. Those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's passed. Thank you, members. That concludes this item, finally. Under agenda item 15, there's no urgent and important business from members of the Cabinet in accordance with Standing Order 26. Agenda item 16, questions from members under Standing Order 17. We've received no questions from members under the provisions of this Standing Order. Agenda item 17, dates for the City Council meetings. Members, the dates and times for council meetings for the next municipal year and in principle the dates of the council meetings for 24-25 have been previously circulated. Leader, do you wish to propose those dates?
Happy to propose, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Bosher, do you wish to second?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Are those dates agreed? Thank you, members. That concludes the business to be dealt with on this agenda, and I now close the meeting at 13:12. Thank you.